7 News exclusive, the I-Team has just uncovered more troubling details of D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser's expensive trips around the world.
We discovered the nation of Qatar paid almost $62,000 for Bowser and 4 staff members to fly to the Middle East in 2023. Our Scott Taylor reports none of these trips have the detailed travel expense records required by law.
And it comes as the mayor herself signed some pretty tough accountability and ethics rules for city leadership.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and most importantly, please make sure that you are following me on Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. And with the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today we are going to head back to Washington, D.C. because I want to take a moment to update you all on what has happened with the corrupt Muriel Bowser, right? Now, in case you missed yesterday's show about Muriel Bowser, let me give you a very quick recap, but I suggest you watch that video in its entirety because it's a really good one. A lot is exposed, right? But in short, very quickly, as you all know, these DNC lunatics have been making a big deal about Trump accepting this private jet, right, from Qatar. As you can see this article here, Trump plans to accept free Air Force One replacement from Qatar, raises ethical and security worries, right? This is a constitutional crisis. Oh my God, how can this be happening? The corruption runs so deep, yada, 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 right? You even had Hakeem Jeffries, aka Timu Obama, he was really reaching with this one when he stated, oh my goodness, Trump is accepting gifts from Qatar, who has strong ties to Hamas, and so on and so forth, right? So while Trump is accepting gifts from Qatar, who has strong ties to Hamas, that's a big deal. Cool. Got it. Okay, if you say so. But when DNC lunatic DC Mayor Muriel Bowser is accepting gifts, donations from Qatar, it's okay. Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to talk about. You know, when she's getting gifts and she's getting flued out to the tune of $61,000 on Qatar to come over to the Middle East and have the time of her life, it's a-okay. But God forbid Trump accepts a gift, which is really just in jest. It's in good favor to keep the peace. He's literally never going to get on that plane ever. He wouldn't even drink a cup of water when he was there. I think I made reference to this video last time. I didn't put it in the last video. I'm making reference to it again, and I'll make sure I'll find the video and incorporate it this time. But Trump wouldn't even drink a cup of water when it was handed to him over there. He held it for a couple of minutes and then set it to the side. If he wouldn't drink a cup of water over there, what would make you think that he would get on a plane that was gifted to him? It was just to keep the peace. It was just a nice gesture, right? But let's get back into the DC mayor, right? Because when she got caught, her office lied about it. She was asked by the local news outlet over there, they asked her, they said, hey man, this trip seemingly cost you $61,930. Who paid for this? Was it tax dollars? And her office lied about it. And they said, no. It wasn't tax dollars. The trip was paid for by the DC Chamber of Commerce. But then when the DC Chamber of Commerce were asked about it, as you can see here, they stated that's not true. And then her staff came out and said, oh, no. It was actually paid for by the U.S. Conference of Mayors. But when the U.S. Conference of Mayors were asked about it, the Conference of Mayors had no comment and told us to talk to the mayor's office. So when the U.S. Conference of Mayors were asked about it, they said, we don't know what you're talking about. You need to go talk to Muriel Bowser. And then they turned around and emailed Qatar. And the response from Qatar was, and get this, you have the entire nation of Qatar that tried to cover up for Muriel Bowser. The Qatar replied to the email and said Qatar called it an in-kind donation. So they said, oh, it was a donation. So retroactively, what then happened is that, as you can see here, based on the title, Muriel Bowser then attempts to have Qatar sign a donation agreement 2 years after it paid for her visit, right? So the corruption runs deep. lying, lying, and lying some more. She got caught in a lie about 2, 3 times. Now she wants to retroactively go back and ask them to say, hey, can you agree that this was a donation? But now, ladies and gentlemen, she's now admitting guilt. She admits it. She's pleading out. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Muriel Bowser is pleading guilty. Figuratively speaking, that is. Figuratively speaking, yes. Since she was caught red-handed, at least her staff was, she didn't verbally lie, but like her staff got caught, as you saw in the last video. Look at this here. DC Mayor admits to not following her own rules for a $61,930 trip to the Middle East. She had to plead guilty, man. Caught red-handed. Let's get into this corruption here. Oh my God, it's so awful. This is just such a constitutional crisis going on with the mayor of DC, right? Let's get into this article. For months, 7 News has been trying to get answers about who's paying for DC Mayor Muriel Bowser's global hopping trip, most notably a $61,930 junket to the Middle East for her and 4 of her staff members. Now, mind you, for those of you who didn't watch the last video, her staffers that went with her, taxpayers paid for that, right? So apparently that 61,000 just went to Muriel Bowser. But as far as her staffers are concerned, the taxpayers of DC, you guys paid for their trip. Just letting you know in case you didn't know. Despite stonewalling by the mayor's office, 7 News I-Team investigator Scott Taylor uncovered that the trip was paid for by the government of Qatar and was never approved as required under city rules established by the mayor herself. These are her own rules that she put in place that she's not following. As the saying goes, rules for thee, not for me. I don't got to follow these rules, but you better. But I can do what I want. Who does Mayor Bowser think she is? Big Tush? I think that she believes that she's Big Tush. Let me tell you something. There's only one Big Tush. All right, let's carry on. Let's carry on. The News 7 I-Team was ready to drop another bombshell on this story on Monday. The mayor's office claimed a March letter from Qatar somehow met paperwork requirements, which needed to be filed and approved before she took the pricey trip in 2023. But that letter is missing vital information required once again by her own policy. On Thursday, Mayor Bowser finally talked to 7 News about it on camera. And I quote, "Why were you not transparent in 2023? According to your own 2015 memorandum about obtaining a donation agreement before you traveled to Qatar?" asked Taylor. Mayor Bowser replied, "We should have, but that donation agreement has been completed. The donation agreement doesn't even follow your own rules. It's just a letter and it's missing 2 answers to questions. And it isn't signed by 2 district officials. Have you let other donation agreements come in from just letters with no invoice?" Taylor said. Like I said, we typically do donation agreements according to our best practices, added Mayor Bowser. Essentially, she's just blowing him off at this point. Once again, she answered the question similar to this manner when we discussed this last time in the last video, right? And she's doing this again. She's basically telling you F off. F off. And yeah, we didn't do it, I guess, 100% the right way, but what are you going to do about it? F off. F off. Excuse me. That's basically the response that you're getting here. This is one of the things that drive me crazy about these DNC lunatics. They love to wag their finger, love to tell you about, this is wrong, that's wrong, look at what you're doing here, constitutional crisis, yada, yada, yada. Tyranny is on the loose, oh my goodness. But they're always talking about themselves when they're doing this. Always. They're discussing themselves. Look at how she's just blowing Mr. Taylor off from I-7 News. She's just like, whatever. Whatever, bro. F off. Let's carry on because the discussion continues on, right? So we'll start back with Taylor here. So he says, so that was a mistake by your office? Mayor Bowser replied, it was. I'm guilty. And Taylor will go on to ask, why did your communications director misinform us twice about who paid for the Middle East trip? Bowser replied, she must have had a misunderstanding. It was a oopsies, the same excuse that they use for Big Tush. All that mortgage fraud, allegedly, that she's engaged in, a lot of it, oopsies. And here we go again. The answer for DNC lunatic corruption seemingly is always oopsies. And as we close this out, Taylor asked, my last question, are you under any ethics investigation for your undocumented travel or your office? Bowser replied, no, I'm not. No, because like Big Tush, I can do whatever I want. And what are you going to do about it? I mean, you don't get any more corrupt than these folks. And the thing is that they're arrogant in their corruption. They are so arrogant in their corruption because they know at the end of the day, when it comes to these liberal cities and states, it doesn't matter how much they lie. It doesn't matter to what degree that you highlight the hypocrisy and just how obvious the hypocrisy is. The people of these cities and states are just going to vote for them anyway. They don't care. Nobody cares, right? So, I mean, I guess I'd be arrogant too. Now, as it pertains to DC, if I'm not mistaken, somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, especially if you live in DC. Maybe somebody would, you all know this. DC operates a bit different than other cities. Washington, DC isn't necessarily completely independent, if I'm not mistaken, kind of like the degree to which Chicago is. In the city of Chicago, they can more or less do what they want, right? But in Washington, D.C., they're still, for the most part, oversighted, for lack of better words. I don't think that's a word, but they're watched over by the actual, like House of Representatives and whatnot, if I'm not mistaken. Correct? Somebody please help me with that in the comment section. I know I probably should have looked it up for myself. It would have made the video sound better. But like, if I'm not mistaken, they don't. Though DC, the mayor and whatnot, and the city council, they have the autonomy to do what they need to do, right? As far as the city is concerned, but they're not completely independent. The House of Representatives in the House and the Senate, right? The federal government is my point. They can actually override almost just about anything that city council and the mayor approve of. I say all that to say this. Should be a federal investigation into this. There should be, in my opinion. Should be. I would definitely investigate this, if there's a way to do so, legally, given the fact that, once again, if I'm not mistaken, the federal government has the final say in Washington, D.C., not the actual local governing body. And if that is the case, we definitely need an investigation. And I'll leave it at that. So with all that being said, that does it for today's news. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video on your social media platforms. And please do not forget to follow me on Telegram. That is so important that you follow me on Telegram, okay? The link to my Telegram is in the description box below and pinned in the comment section as well. You will never miss a notification. You follow me on Telegram. Thank you all for your time. And to the next video, peace and have a great afternoon.